of these do you already know and do? Let me know in the comments and let's get right to the tips. Tip number 1 is having tiers of clothing. So on the top, you're gonna have like your nice clothes. These are the ones you'll wear to grandma's house or to church. Below that, this is what I'd call your everyday wear. The very bottom, you've got work clothes. These are clothes you're gonna probably get dirty in, cooking, cleaning. And as your clothes get more worn, they graduate, or what's the opposite of graduate? You're getting demoted? Clothes get demoted from nice category to everyday wear, from everyday wear to work wear. It keeps them in rotation longer in your closet, so you have to purchase fewer clothes. Nowadays, clothing companies want you to buy clothes for each of those purposes because that makes them more money. You've got workout clothes, leisure clothes, business casual. It keeps them in business and it keeps you poor. In addition, this is why even as recently as the 1950s, aprons were really popular because they saved you money for 2 different reasons. Number 1, they would keep your nice clothes in the nice category for longer because they would be catching all the spills and grime, whatever you're working on. This means that you're not doing laundry as often because the apron is catching the messes. So you're saving money on the electricity to run your washing machine, on the detergent to clean everything up. Also, the more often your clothes go through the wash, the faster those fibers break down, the faster all the dyes are gonna start to kind of fade and get this kind of meh look, and they're not as bright, poppin' and vibrant as they were when you bought them in the store. So the fewer times clothes are going through the wash, the longer lasting they will be, meaning you don't have to keep going and buying new clothes, meaning you're saving money on the clothes. All right, tip number 2, speaking of laundry, learn how to spot treat stains on your clothing. If you get a tiny stain on your shirt and you just take the whole thing off and throw it in the hamper and say, I'll get to it next laundry day, that's a missed opportunity. Because instead what you could be doing is just spot treating the stain, which yes, does take a little bit of skill to learn how to differentiate between a grass stain and a wine stain and an ink stain. Like each of those stains have different ways that you need to get them clean. However, if you can learn even just a couple treatments for stains that you really frequently are seeing, and you can spot treat those, that saves you from having to throw the entire thing into the wash, have it use up all the water and soap suds and energy that it takes to get the whole garment clean, when really it was just a little spot. Now, I'll be honest, I'm still working on this skill myself, especially with the 3 little kids running around. I don't have time to spot treat every mushed banana in a shirt. However, I do have a few stain fighting tricks in my arsenal. For example, I recently learned, like a couple months ago, that if I get a coffee stain on a shirt, all I have to do is put the shirt inside out, run cold water in the opposite direction that the stain came in. I don't know if it's like reverse osmosis, I don't know what you'd call it, but it got the stain completely out after air drying for a day. This was my favorite white shirt, got a big old coffee stain on it, and I just had to run the cold water in the opposite direction, let it air dry overnight. It was perfect the next morning, 0 soap or laundry needed. Pretty cool. Also, just a little heads up that this tip, this laundry tip number 2, is your secret hint for the next giant frugal experiment I'm attempting. Any guesses? Right, number 3, having useful hobbies. I'm not talking about hustle culture. I'm not talking about never having any free time to yourself, always working yourself to the bone. No, I'm saying find hobbies that you enjoy, that fill your cup, that also happen to be useful. You don't have to make money off of them, but things like quilt making, cooking, baking, car repair, gardening. These were things that our foremothers and forefathers did all the time, and there was a skill involved. That's why things like quilt making contests and pie making contests exist, because not that long ago, these were very useful, necessary skills that people really worked to hone and craft and enjoyed. Even if you can find some hobbies that basically create things that beautify your home, will save you money, because now you don't have to go to the $5 section at Target and buy something kitsch that you think, oh, well, that will make my house look really nice. Like I have right here my grandmother's, oh, maybe it's on this side. Yeah, this side is the pretty side. Like this is my grandmother's hand embroidered handkerchief. Nowadays we're not using hand embroidered handkerchiefs to blow our noses in the same way. But if you've got a skill like painting or embroidering to make your home feel comfortable and warm and nice, that saves you from having to buy them. Don't get sucked into the DIY rabbit hole, because that is actually a money loser, my friends. I'm not saying you have to turn all of your favorite hobbies into a small business and have the joy sucked out of them, but just find more useful ways to employ your time than, you know. Which kind of along with that one, number 4, entertaining yourself is a very useful old-fashioned skill. You know, in today's society, companies just love to offer you the opportunity to part with your money in exchange for some momentary pleasure or enjoyment. But if you can figure out how to make your own fun, you're gonna clean up. And that doesn't mean you never get to spend any money on fun things, but if you can figure out how to only spend money on the things you really want and not just waste $5 here, $1 here on some little attempted store-bought happiness, you're going to be better off in the long run. This is why back in the day, people with like musical talents or the ability to tell really funny stories, those guys were the ones people wanted at all the parties, because there wasn't any way to turn on the big game to entertain the whole crowd at a party. You couldn't put on background music on Alexa. You had to have all of the people around you be part of the entertainment. And so if you've got the skill to entertain yourself by playing an instrument or singing, dance like no one's watching in the kitchen while doing the dishes, that's one of my favorites. You're gonna have a good time. Right, number 5, doing natural exercise. Like the gym for normal people is a very new idea. If you want to do things the old-fashioned way, you can go hoist some cast iron pans. I know that's, my aunt yesterday commented, wow, you have such big muscles. I'm like, yeah, I'm carrying babies in cast iron pans. And you're probably laughing at me because I don't have very big muscles, but more than I used to. Or go hoist bales of hay or run away from a bear. Okay, maybe not that one, that's a terrible idea. You can just go for a walk. You can get creative and find ways to move your body in ways that challenge it, that are not expensive. 6, cook from scratch with whole ingredients. So your grandma or your great-grandma or your great-great-great-grandma used to have a whole chicken that she would cook and then cut up whole potatoes. Maybe she'd whip up some fresh tortillas. These are the things, the skills that don't come from a hamburger helper or a can of cream of chicken soup. People nowadays are purchasing way fewer whole ingredients in favor of a lot of these ultra-processed things. Side note, my husband and I are reading this book called Ultra-Processed People, so there's been a lot of discussion of this in our house recently. There's a crazy stat from that book which said that in the UK, the average person only purchases 2 kilograms of flour, or that's close to 4 pounds of flour per year for home baking. I don't know about you, but I purchased more than that like last week. Do you use more than that? And speaking of old-fashioned skills around real food, number 7 is bread making. Right, here's a secret for you. Bread is not that hard. Now hear me out. If you want to try to make bread that's exactly like store-bought sliced up sandwich bread, or you're trying to make like these gorgeous artisanal sourdough loaves with all the little like slices and pretty patterns on the top, okay, both of those things are hard. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm calling this peasant bread. It's bread that tastes delicious, it tastes like bread, and it's not hard to make. It won't slice as well if you want to make sandwiches. If you want to make sandwiches, I've learned that doing it in slider format, like if you make these rolls, then you have a lot more hard constructed breadness to hold the sandwich together. It works better than slicing a loaf of bread. But if you're just making bread at home, super duper easy. Don't need a bread maker, as long as you got muscles to knead or a stand mixer. I'll leave a link in the description for my foolproof recipe that I've been tinkering with for a while now and swear by. All right, number 8 is gardening. Obviously, people think of the idea of gardening and just immediately nope out. They get too overwhelmed. But if you want to start really small, get some herbs from the grocery store. You know how they've got like herbs just in the produce section, like a pot of herbs? Get them on your windowsill put them directly in front of wherever you're gonna do the dishes. So you've gotta look at them a bunch of times a day. And that way you won't forget about them. Look up how often they need water. Just work on one little baby skill at a time. Especially herbs I like to have for starter plants because they just bring so much flavor into your home cooking that it's immediately gratifying. Whereas like growing a tomato plant, it takes a really long time. There's a lot of ways to mess it up. You can only do it at certain times of the year. Like there's a lot of reasons not to start with tomato, although everyone thinks to start with tomato. No, I say start with an herb. And bit by bit, if you're enjoying it and you want to go further, your skills grow every year. I'm a master gardener. I got my certification before kids, thank God. And even I am learning tons every single year because it's just practicing and tinkering and learning by experience, which by default, if you're going to do it outside, takes a long time. Also, gardening does not have to be an expensive hobby. If you go onto like a Free Cycle or a Buy Nothing group, you can find a lot of starter equipment like a trowel and some soil, maybe even some seeds. If you don't have seeds on a Buy Nothing group, you can check your local library, see if they know where you can access a seed library, which is just where you get your seeds for free, which is pretty cool. Gardeners, in my experience, tend to be a very generous bunch, and if you want to start this as a hobby and a money-saving skill, it's a good place to start because they will be willing to help you out a lot. Number 9 is paying with your money, like cash or maybe a debit card, but money that you earned and is in your account that you physically already have. I'm not talking about credit cards or buy now pay later like Afterpay or Affirm or Zip or any of those guys. They're death traps. You miss one payment and you're gonna get the late fee of your life, and they have interest rates that make me want to vomit. Anything anything resembling the modern credit card wasn't even invented until 1958. So our forefathers literally didn't have any other options. If they didn't have the money, they had to find a new solution. So my advice to you is just to pretend like you got in a time machine and you're back in 1940 and there's no credit cards, and you've got to come up with a more creative solution. Because these alternatives are out there, they're easy traps to fall into. It's going to be so much better for your credit, for your bank account, for your mental health, to not be worrying about these 5,000 different apps that you owe money to just pay only with money you have. And if you don't have it, get super creative. And one of the ways you might need to get creative is point 10, talking to people in real life. I love the internet. Clearly, I'm talking to you through the internet. We wouldn't have met without the internet. But learning to have conversations face to face with people can bring out a ton of new information and ways to save money that you wouldn't have known otherwise. For example, like if you're trying to do a negotiation with someone, being able to read their facial expression and get a sense for their true intentions really is hard to do, especially over text. Going face to face also means you can barter goods and services. Like you've got an apple pie and I've got the ability to teach your third graders some math lessons. Those, I have looked everywhere. I cannot find an effective app or website for bartering goods and services online. I tried, I'm not sure if any of you have heard of this. I've tried time banking, didn't work. And Facebook Marketplace barter groups, those, I haven't seen them work either. I've tried. So if you know of any secret websites out there, I would really love to know. For those of you new to the channel, hi, I'm Hillary. I talk about all the different ways you can save money. And if you would like some more tips because you're like, yeah, I need to save some more money, Hillary, what are you doing? So if you need a few more tips, I'll send you to this video and that'll give you a bunch more. And I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you over there. Bye, YouTube.